Now that you've recorded your distance from the center out of the axle, the center of the cam, to the top of the follower, we're going to go ahead and graph this. We're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to use what's called a polar grid or radial grid. So I'm going to select column B, which is where I have the distances recorded. And I'm going to go ahead and insert a chart. And I'm going to switch the type of chart, and I have to scroll down a little bit. And then pick up this one that says radial chart. So now you'll notice that these are my distances going out. So 5 inches, 5.2 inches, 5.4, 5.6, 5.8. So that's fine, but I'm going to need to label this so people can kind of see at what angle each measurement took place. So I'm going to go into right here where it says x-axis. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I can either type in A1 through A25, or I could just highlight them and click OK. So now you'll see that my grid goes from 0 all the way to 345. If your data goes to 360, you're going to want to cut that off because 360 and 1 are exactly the same location. So you either want to go from 15 to 360, or you want to go from 0 to 345. So you're going to want to delete either your 0 measurement or your 360 measurement because they're in the same place. Now let's go ahead and customize this a little bit. So chart style we're fine with. Radial grid lines, that's fine. Chart title and axis, so you want to make sure this is degrees. Degrees versus distance. And then you can center it if you like. Change the color, you can mess with that on your own. Series, I'm going to put a point. So if I hover over, it'll tell me like what, once we close this, what the distance was at that point. So like at 2 point, that's fine. I mean, you can change it again if you want to. I would just leave it at a circle. And you're going to apply that to the distance, which is column B. For our legend, we're going to place that up in the right. Vertical axes. Now, my vertical axis is the distance from the center to the outside. So right now I'm going from 5 to 5.8. I want to check to make sure that that range of data from 5 to 5.8 is enough. So I'm going to come over here to my chart. I'm going to type in min. And below that, I'm going to go up to where my formulas are. And I say I want to know what the minimum of my data is. So I'll drag over my data, hit enter. So my minimum data is 5.09, which is fine. That's going to be able to be displayed on my grid here. Let me go to my max, because I notice that my data is falling outside of my maximum here. Because on my max is 5.8, and it looks like I have some data that's greater than 5.8. So I'm going to go up here to functions, find max. Again, I'm going to highlight my data. I might get an error. I was afraid it wouldn't do it because I highlighted the word distance. So my greatest value is 5.84, but my graph only shows up to 5.8. So I'm going to go ahead and double click here, and let's go to our vertical axis, my minimum value. I'm just going to say I want to go from 5 to 5 to 9 or 5 to 6. Let's go 5 to 5.9. Hit enter. We'll go 6. There we go. So now my information falls within my graph. And we're just going to leave that alone for right now. Grid lines, auto's fine. There's a number of lines coming out. For vertical, if you wanted to add one, I guess if you wanted to split up right now, we're going by quarters, quarter of an inch. It's up to you. Just make sure that makes it easy to read the data. So now I can go ahead and close that. And if I hover, let's make this a little bit bigger. over each point, it tells me what the distance is. So when the crank was turned at 30 degrees, the distance to the top of the follower was 5.6. When we turn the crank to 45 degrees, the distance to the follower was 5.696. When we turned the crank to 60 degrees, it went up to 5.773, and etc. as I turn the crank all the way around. Now, the shape of yours will be different depending on which of the cams you were assigned. Also, your values will change depending on the size of your cam. So your graph and the graph of the person next to you or the person in your row should look the same, but your values will be slightly different depending on, again, the size of your cam. So that's how you're going to go ahead and graph. Oh, make sure you graph your I guess we don't necessarily have a horizontal vertical axis. Distance, I want this to say distance in inches. Position right. Chart title. I don't know if we have a vertical axis title. Let's see, let's put distance in distance. There we go. Distance in inches. At least he gave it to us here so people know that these are inches. So go ahead and create your polar grid or your radial grid and then come back and we'll graph the next part.